Hello, my name is Sheldon Scott, and I am the juror and curator of the Next Noun show at George Mason. I am a Washington, D.C. based artist whose primary practice is performance-based. I work at the intersection of race, economics, and sexuality, and use both my practice as a performance artist and as someone who makes durable items to examine some of the most important questions that we are facing today as society. This exhibition is composed of 18 artists and educators from all across the U.S. who are part of the conference known as FATE, which stands for the Foundation in Arts, Theory, and Education.
My name is Jeffrey Kenny, Associate Curator with Mason Exhibitions. We're standing here in the Next Now exhibition held in tandem with the FATE conference, which will be coming to George Mason in April. The exhibition runs from March 17th through April 18th. The gallery is open daily, Monday through Friday from 11 to 5 p.m. I'm here with artist Sheldon Scott, who is our juror and curator of the exhibition. Welcome, Sheldon.
Thank you guys for having me here at Mason. Thanks, Fate, for inviting me to be both a curator and juror for the show, but also the keynote speaker for the conference. So it's been an honor to be a part of this whole conversation because I think it's incredibly important.
And you put together a really beautiful and thought-provoking exhibition.
Thank you. Let's walk through.
Inside of the body, inside of the home.
And these are each unique pieces, right? They're not.
I don't think they could probably be displayed any which way, but
okay.
Because they were small, I felt they gridded up well.
Yeah, because I remember we were trying to figure out which one of these we actually wanted.
Right. And this was based on the Hangman game. Yes. So from the artists that you gave us, when we worked out the layout, was to think about groupings, artists that worked together, partly because I think your initial plan was just responding to what you saw without thinking fully about themes.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we were trying to figure out how we can make these things respond to each other in many ways, because it was there. So we have a kind of domestic body. We have the national body. We have ones that I think point closer to mortality, or care, mourning. There's some aspects of the natural world, or recreating the natural world, maybe a hybrid between the natural and the artificial. I think these were one of the first ones that you showed me, which I think are really poetic and interesting, that are kind of the blend between the body and kale, prickly pear, cactuses, where it's kind of literalizing that relationship. But yeah, so there's maybe three, and then there's these kind of sub-themes of looking, listening, reading, and many audio components, including the IV has the sound of a hospital that plays, and then the two video works, that one being about getting sanitary napkins in places that are not available, but also trying to understand identity through the lens of a Chinese growing up in China, and understanding the relationship to the feminine body and identity within that culture. I don't know.
I really appreciate how the physical manifestation and the layout of the work really gives structure to the language. Because like you said, when I was jurying and looking at all the pieces, I think it was more important, instead of me laying over a prescription about what I necessarily wanted to see, it's much more interesting to kind of see what people were saying.
Right.
And, and there are all these desperate conversations that are happening in people's work, and things that are really on people's consciousness right now. And that's this whole exhibition is stream of consciousness. What are people thinking about, and how are they thinking and talking about it? Which is obviously foundational to education, because then we teach those things.
Yeah.
So, seeing it all come together physically, and all these different languages come to make these statements in many different ways, and finding the connectivity between the work physically,
Right.
I think is incredibly important. So it's like been really amazing to see how, after looking at these works for so long, like in their flat context, to see how they came together in the real world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you all did an amazing job of putting together a very concise statement.
Yeah. Well, it's all thanks to what you plan. I mean, we were given a parameter, right? That this was, we had maybe 100 applicants of
I think it was
some,
almost 100.
yeah, almost
Yes.
100 applicants. The parameter was that they were members of Fate, but I think the approach was not to make it, like you said, didactic to the concepts of anything.
Yes.
But the call was focused on people looking for ideas that are pushing education forward, and maybe practices that reflect that kind of diversity of approaches and thoughts about how to teach the entrance level art student